Okay, so what we've done, we've just put the little window area in the back here for the sighting system that's going to fit on the turret, just up here. Same thing again, we're not going to put in any clear parts or any film or anything else like that, because there again, if you put it on the top, as it will fit, we can get to it from underneath quite easily. So it'll just save us having to mask things up and go around. So what we're going to do now is put these bits on top. Technically the gun should fit in just like so, and then you can glue it and then it all moves and all the rest of it. I'm going to leave it off for a minute because I still want to work on this barrel, but the barrel's not totally dry yet to be able to get in there and get rid of any seam lines. So okay, working on here, we've got the rear bin is going to go on first. Now you've got the holes at the back here, so it's quite a straightforward one this. It just fits in just like that, and when you're happy it's in there nicely, just get a drop of glue and just let it all flow in everywhere. For the rear bin, okay, just like so. That's a nice straightforward job. If you've got any little gaps, just add a little bit more glue and let it pull up. Okay, so the side bins go on, and there we go, smallest to the rear. It's going to fit, and then just run some glue down and around just to take care of those. And same for the other side. It's just going to go straight on. Just like that, and then the side pouchy things can go on as well. So if you line them up with the grooves, you should find that it will all line up as it goes. We need to bring this back a bit so you find this hole. There we go, and it'll all just click in. You get the center hole in there, and then the pouch will all go in. Now if you just put a blob of your extra thin on each end, you should find it will weld up a treat, and then obviously we just do the same for those middle ones, like that, and a little bit on the end. Okay, so our next bit is to make the rear rack. Now if you have a look at the instructions here, as you can see, you get the mesh gauze, which is this stuff, which comes with the kit. So the easiest way to do this is to photocopy it, cut round it and use it as a template, or you can do it this way. Now the thing is with the gauze, it always sort of comes off, it's not square, the holes don't run down. So the first thing I've done is just take, my blade and just cut a line across to square it up so all the holes are in the same way. I've also made a few little marks on the paper just to help me with sort of references of how the bits lay out. So we can stick this on the top like so, and then what you're basically going to do is just roughly for the moment is cut out where it is. Now if you do this nice and lightly, you won't end up cutting through your paper, and you'll just cut through your gauze type stuff, and you can roughly work out where you're going. So if you just follow it to the nearest square, you'll find you'll be okay. So if we just show you here, okay, this one here travels all the way along, like so. Now it's better to be a little bit over than it is under, so don't be too frightened of, as I say, going over a little bit, perhaps one square too far, because when you come to put your top part on, if it's too small, obviously you're not going to fit it in the hole. So if we just carefully do that one as well. Now when we've done it like this, we can carefully see where we haven't quite cut through enough. Find out what the problem is. And there we go, that gets us this bit. So then what we can do now, we can just line this up again just to see how we are and make sure we're all okay. And obviously you've got the curves on the side, and your other point is you've just got to nick out one square to allow the little join. So if you do that as well now, so you just nick out, as I say, each square you're doing. It's a bit of a fiddly job, but once you're there, it makes it straightforward to actually fit. Now your last thing you want to do is just curve in your outer sides. Just pop round there with a knife, and then hopefully, as I show you up against the bit of white here, you'll end up with it looking just the same as on this one. With any luck, you haven't cut too far through your pattern. So that will go out of the way. So if you're happy with it, then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to just put this actually together, put the two parts together and see how they go. So this is going to fit just down in the little tabby things. So if we just hold there, we can just pop around with our glue. Just touch these in. These are slightly the time-consuming bits, but certainly when it's done, you're away. Okay, so all we're going to do now, we're just going to let that dry. Okay, so it's been drying about sort of 10 minutes now. Now the best way to put this in, if you can, is probably with a little bit of PVA. So we've got two choices, or super glue. We can either put a little bit of super glue in and push it in and away we go, or we can actually do it with a little bit of sort of PVA type thing, or the gator glue that we use, something like that. As long as it's going to dry clear, we'll be okay. So we're going to try it with a little bit of the gator glue. We've got a cocktail stick, and it's pretty straightforward. All we're going to do is just going to drop it in over these running bars, which are the bigger ones that run down the middle. A little bit more. Just like so. Now I'm not worried about the edges for the moment, because we need this to sort of go in. If I bring you in a little bit. Now you just want to make sure that it actually, the little holes you put in, it pushes up and in. But you should find, if you've cut it all correctly, that it will pop in there. You tend to find one half goes in and then it pops out and backwards and forwards, and that's the great thing about super glue. It will stop that from happening. Now what I'm going to do, it doesn't mention it on the instructions, but just down the bottom here you've got a centre cleat. So I'm going to use my scissors here and just going to make a little, just going to take a little section just out the middle. Here we go, I've just taken a little bit just out of this middle bit, and what you can see it's a bit dark, just to make this fit in, because it's what was holding us back. There we go, that makes it far nicer fit. But once you're all in, you should look something like that, which is just a nice little mesh area. Now the ones on the ends are probably poking up a little bit at the moment, but what we do is we'll poke them down and pop a little bit of the actual glue on the edges just to hold them in. But for the moment we can get these centre bits drying. Now what you could do is just pop something heavy on there just to hold them all in place. Okay, so now we've got those in, we can put on these end bits, which will just make things just a little bit easier. But these will just fit in and they just push over the edge. Pretty straightforward. So just a drop of glue on each of those. A drop of glue just in there. Okay, so as you can see, the actual rear carriage rank there is all done and all in place, so we're going to leave that now to dry. Now we can get on with a few of the other bits. Now we've got the TV camera, same thing as usual. We're not going to glue it in the clear part because that can all be done afterwards. Just bring it out a bit. So the top bit goes on first. Goes in like that, and we just run some glue around the inside. Like so. Takes care of that. And then the entire thing goes onto a collar. And you want the little tabby bit at the back of the collar to go around the back because that's its little closed position. So fit that to the rear, and then if you put on a drop on the back here, the back plate can go on and close up. Just do a drop more, and there we go. That's very straightforward, and that one will fit on the front up there like so. So that goes in there like that. And then next we've got the MCD, which I'm not sure what an MCD is, but it sounds good. There's two little joining tabs at the front, quite a straightforward one there, so we just do a drop of glue on each little foot. Okay, then this plate is going to sit on the top. We'll line up those holes, bring that across a little bit. There we go, front and back parts on here. If we get this around the right way, there we go. There we go, it's going to fit in. So we're just going to put some glue onto the inside only, so that fits in just like so, with a little cooler at the back. Then we can drop this, we put some on the outside with a capillary running the outside. The box there will sit nice and snug on top. So that's that one done. And the last is the APU, is the auxiliary power unit. Quite a few, it's just basically going to be building a box with this one as well. So that's pretty well straightforward. If we put a piece on here, that will hold the front in position. There we go, so we can run a bit down the back, and then we'll pop the sides on. And we'll glue from the inside, just put a drop of your glue, just saying let the capillary do its bit all the way around it. If you glue from the inside where you can, you won't get any joins anywhere. And it's quite a nice way of doing it. If I could do all of them from the inside, I would, but certainly with aircraft, things like that, you can't. But when you're building armour, it's one of the perks that you can. Okay, lid goes on. Make sure you've got your doors the right way round. And that's just going to sit on the top, so it's going to go little drops just to let it run all the way around. Bit up the front, bit of tap, bit of a push, there we go, and that's done as well. So that's all those parts done, and the last one we've got here is part D37, which is part of the actual APU, which is going to click all together. So we're going to let all those parts dry now and do their bit, and then we can get them all. Okay, so we've had all the sub-assemblies now sort of drying, coming together. As we said, I left the gun turret here for, gun barrel, for about sort of 48 hours to completely go hard, and then sanded it down. Because it's extra thin, if you try and sand and file when it's still slightly wet, although it's dry on the top, you get in there a bit, the plastic's still soft and it tears and pulls it out. If you let it dry, you can get a nice feel. So basically, because it's this, we did a little bit more. We went around with the sanding, quite a coarse one, then we went to a fine, and then I used a polishing one after that, because as I say, it is very much a focal point and you're going to see it. So we've got those other sub-assemblies together. So now what we can do is start to put these bits together. We've got the rack here. Now this is going to fit onto the back, like so, and that sits on there quite straightforward like that. So what we can do, we'll glue from the underside. Okay, just going to do those, a couple of drops, and let those joins weld up. The same on the top. Just like that. I'm going to leave that hanging over the edge just over there for one moment. Okay, so we're basically got it going. As I say, we've got that bit drying. So what we're going to do now is move on. So really, on the instructions here, we're up to parts basically 19, 20, and this is where you're going to have to make your decision, obviously, on what markings you're doing. If you're doing aftermarket, then obviously check them. You're going to get 4 different types with the actual Tamiya kit. You've got A and B sets, and they have different types of guns, different types of turrets, and then things going on the top. They've got the thermal commander's camera, which we made earlier, so that one will go on. And then you've got C, D and E, which is one of the cavalry units and the Marine Corps Abrams tanks, and they have a different setup on top. So you're going to have to decide on what you've actually got. We built it here. We've got the missile countermeasure lens as well for that one to go on there. I'm going to be doing it as C. So we're going to be following all the bits for the C, and funnily enough, it doesn't have the turret up the front, so it just has a blanking plate. So what we're going to do, we're going to work through C. They're all basically the same type of thing. So what we're going to do, we're going to put the hatch together. So what we've actually got is all the bits and pieces for it sorted out. Okay, so we've got the ones going on here. They actually only go one way round because you've got little locating pins on there, and the left and right works quite well. And then you've got your the main gun part as well. So that's fitted in the top like that. So obviously we've got the finder here and the gun is going to sit on the top. The plates are on. So now all we've got to do is the back hatch. So we have the hatch like so, and then you've got a large pin, small pin, and obviously the part that's going to go in the middle. So we're going to pop the middle section through first, and then we're just going to put a drop of glue. Sorry, we're going to put a drop of glue in each hole, and it will actually only go one way round. And that fits in there just like that. So when we're on, so actually it's facing slightly upwards. You can have it as a loose fit, so it'll sort of work. And then obviously this will then be gluing or going onto here, like so. So it will go on just like that. Excuse the roofers, it's their last day today and they're taking it all down. Other things we can do, we've actually got the chaff and flare launchers, which they're going to go on shortly as well, so they can go on. But what we can start doing now, if I bring you out of it, is bringing it all together. We've got the little periscopy thing on the back, so that will go on here. Drop of glue down the back there. There we go, that can sit on. Let's put another little drop just around so the capillary action works around that. So that's that one on. I say forward hatch, obviously you've got your choices. You've got your anti-missile bit, which is going to go on there like that, but obviously we're not using that one on this build. Or you've actually got the thermal camera, which fits on there like that one, but we're not going to be using those two on this particular build. It's a bit boring, I know, but we've got a blanking plate. So what we're going to do is just going to put a drop of glue just on the tops, and then when we put the top on, and it's got a little groove, it only goes on one way, the capillary action will pull itself around. So that goes on just like that. We've got the top hatch as well for the gunner there. That's just going to sit closed for the moment, because obviously we'll spray, then we'll all have it in the opening particular parts. But as you can see, this hatch here, we're not going to glue any of these down because we need to get the glass work in there afterwards, but it's going to sit on there like that. The gun now, we can actually start putting it together as well. So the gun barrel, just put a bit of glue all around the end. Okay, and the gun fits in, nice fit. Same with the main part, just put a drop of glue all the way around and on the end. And then make sure you've got it the right way up, and you can just put that on and hold. Just hold it there for a minute to keep it all in place until it starts to bite, like so. So we've got that bit going on. Right, we've got the APU to go on the top. So make sure we've got that the right way round. It hangs off the back. So that should go just in here. And it will sit in there just like that. Not sure exactly how the location it goes to, because it doesn't actually have any points. So what we'll do, we're just going to run a bit of glue. Just turn that back part. Okay, just like that. One side there, and let it all run down. Here we go, it's nice and square on the back. So that's that one in. And we've got this part that goes on the side, which is going to join up into the APU. That sits in. Just like so. Right, the other thing we've got is these little eyelet hooks, which I presume are lifting hooks that are going to go on the top of the actual, this part here, on the top of the hatch here. Now, I'm not sure if it's best to put them on now or afterwards. Just for argument's sake, I'm going to put them on now and just pray they don't get knocked off during any spraying or other little bits we're going to do. Now, they're very, very fiddly. If I bring you in. But there it is on the end of my finger there, and it's going to go on here, so it's probably best to use a pair of tweezers. Okay, and it's just going to sit in that hole right there. There's one. And two. Last one. And three. So that's those eyelets on, and that's fine and can sit on there now. Now the only other thing we've got to do at this point is we've got all these little the actual cleats and various bits and pieces to go on the back here we made the holes for. Same thing, if you were going to do different variants, they have different hole groups and things like that. So we're going to get these all put on now. Okay, as you can see, we've basically got all the parts on now. We've got the cleats, the bits and pieces, we've got the smoke launchers on the front here done. One of the last little bits to do now is the main little guard that goes on top of the gun. So we've still got to fix that, which we'll do in a second. So what we can do now is actually get the top hull and the lower hull put together. Now, if you remember me saying there's a tab that fits under here, which then clicks underneath, but because this isn't going to be coming apart, we're going to leave it in one, and we don't have to worry about that. So if we pop the turret out of the way, obviously we'll just push them together down the back. And now what we're going to do, using some of our rubber bands, we're just going to pull it slightly together. So we're not going to have them pulling over too tightly, but what we want to do, if we wrap it over the light, it should give us a little gap. So obviously the glue won't touch. So we go one over the front there like that. We've got both the bands and it's just pulling the front up together and pulling the back. So what we're going to do is just make sure you're all nicely squared off round the back, and we're just going to go from the inside and pop a bit of glue around those joins. So if we just take your time, make a nice join there at the back, and obviously let your glue run all the way along. Okay, so we've taken off the bands, we're all happy. We've got a little bit of sanding just to take care of around the front here. We're going to probably put a little tiny bit of more glue in there and sand it up so as to make it smooth. Now the last things we've done, we put a couple of blobs of blue tack on the inside just to hold the hatches in place so we can spray it all in one. And I've actually got the panels on the side now that I've actually fitted on, which are the friendly thingies, or do they call them? They've got a name, a CIP, Combat Identification Panel, on the side, and then we've just got one to go on the rear as well. Obviously check your references because some of them don't have them, some of them do. Obviously if you're doing early tanks, they don't actually have them, it's just the later ones. So we're just going to check our references, that's it, and this one is going to go to the back grid round about sort of here, so we just check that. So we just put a drop of glue down on the insides. Obviously make sure you've got it the right way up. It should fit in. How far up it goes. Over one. There we go, and it fits just in the back. Just the other thing I've also done, just as I mentioned it, I've taken out these tabs which hold it and bolt it on. Now the reason for doing that is it just makes it easier, and because we're using acrylic paint, I don't want to be going around scratching it up and things like that. So, and obviously the model's not going to be moving or going anywhere, so it will be okay just to do it like this. So it just goes around, and then when you want to take it off, you can just pull it off. Otherwise, if you're on those tabs, it really digs in and really scratches as it goes around. Okay, so for the last thing to go on now for the moment, before we start spraying, is putting on the other panels that go onto the front, and there's one to the rear, which are the thermal panels. Now, nicely enough, Tamiya have included a very thin sheet of styrene, which is just plastic card, and then what you've got it down here on your instructions that gives it. Now you could measure it out, or the quick way, as I'll do here, clear myself a little space, is you've got down on this section, just down here, you've got a little picture, so you can put your plastic card right over the top of it. Okay, and then bring in your ruler, make sure you're all nice and squared up, like so. Okay, and then cut. Now we're not trying to slice all the way through, but what we're certainly trying to do is score it heavily so we can actually see where we're going to be cutting. So over the top, because you can see the shadow. If you can't see it on the camera, you can actually see the picture in there. So there we go, that's in there now. So then if we just bend, and then hopefully you can just ping it off just like that. And now that's ready to be glued, as this one is, because it's a number particular one on this one, where it actually gets glued onto the back just like so. Some of them have different markings and different setups, but on this one it just sits just on the edge like that. So you've got the ones that go on the front as well, which are these panels on here that fit on the front. So if you measure them out, and then with a tiny bit of glue, just stick them straight on. Don't use too much glue, because obviously this is very thin plastic card and it will melt because the Tamiya glue will eat into it. Okay, and there we go, we're all done. We're all set now and ready for priming. I'm going to put together the ammo cans and all those little extra bits that you'll get at the back, but that's your own personal choice how you do it. One thing to mention, Tamiya calls out for the sizing for these, for the identification plates, and the one on the rear. Now, basically, they actually say it should be 23 millimeters by 16.5. Now, something's wrong somewhere, because when you put that on, they overhang top and bottom. Now, obviously, it's slightly different sided, it's wider on one side than the other, and you get a sort of a weird effect with it, because obviously this panel looks a lot smaller than this side, but they are exactly the same size. It's just that this side is slightly wider, so it pulls it across. But my actual measurements, and you know, I've had a look, I've just had a quick check of the references and everything else. It's very hard to get an accurate size of how big they were, but basically I've done 21 millimeters instead of 23, and they're 15 mil deep panels. Your own personal choice, you can use them, but obviously when you do put their sizing on, it does hang completely over and is well out. But from my point of view, I'm quite happy with the way it looks anyway. So what we're going to do, we're going to let this just all totally dry off now for the next sort of 20 minutes, and then we're going to come back and we're going to give it a complete coat of primer, and then we can then start getting on with getting some paint on there.